If you want 2025 to be the year that you succeed with money, there is a specific path that you should be taking as a medical professional to get yourself there. Now, we've helped thousands of medical professionals learn how to strategically clear their debt and build wealth. So know a thing or two about what it looks like to actually become successful. Although everybody's path looks a little bit different, there's a common thread underlying the people who become early millionaires and build a lot of wealth and the people who just tread water. Let's walk through the path so that you can figure out where you are right now and what you should be doing next. The first step is to become totally free of high interest debt. This is anything for sure with an interest rate above 10%. Credit card debt almost always falls into this category, as do many personal loans and other kind of consumer debts. Now, you have to be careful in this area because there are strategies you can use that might feel like they eliminate the problem, but actually kick the can down the road. One of those is 0% APR card transfers. And while you can mathematically save some money in interest by getting rid of your high interest debt that way, it doesn't actually solve the problem. For example, if you have $10,000 on a credit card charging you 27% in interest, and you transfer it to a 0% APR card where you have a 10-month window of 0% APR, you now have an $1,000 a month problem in order to make sure that that $10,000 debt is cleared before your 0% APR window closes and you're back in the same situation that you were in. So while it saves you mathematically in interest, it doesn't solve the cash flow problem. Getting past this phase requires some financial habits and discipline that maybe you haven't developed yet. If that's you, I have an entire video on the 3-step system we teach all medical professionals to use to clear credit card debt specifically. So head over and watch that video next if you're in phase 1. It's really difficult to do anything wealth building in this phase. The truth is, your returns in the stock market are not going to surpass the interest that you're paying on your debt, especially not in the long term. So the math doesn't work for you to actually invest in the stock bond market in this area when you're at this phase of the path, which sucks because we all want to build wealth, but the nature of the beast is you have to check this box first so that mathematically you can actually then transition your money to investing and it makes sense because you're not losing more in interest than you're gaining in returns. The next phase, and this is where a lot of people get tripped up, is to have a strategy for your moderate interest rate debt. That does not mean go pay off all of your student loans as fast as you can. If you want to know what happens if you follow the Dave Ramsey plan with your student loan debt, I'll link the video below to me walking through those numbers and you can see how that actually shakes out. Okay, it doesn't mean go pay it all off as fast as you can. It doesn't mean go pay off your primary residence mortgage as fast as you can. It doesn't even necessarily mean pay off your car loan at 4% as fast as you can. It means know what you are doing for your debt. Now, there's less strategy to a car loan, right? But there's a lot of strategy to federal student loans. And you should understand, if you're pursuing public service loan forgiveness, taxable loan forgiveness, if you're doing a standard 10-year approach, if you're taking an accelerated approach, if you're going to use National Health Service Corps or one of these other forgiveness modalities, you need to know that. You need to decide that because that changes your cash flow, right? The overall strategy that you pick for your student loan debt is what determines the payment plan you should be on. You don't pick the payment plan based on which has the lowest student loan payment, right? Even though a lot of people do that. You pick the payment plan based on the strategy selected. And so in order for you to check this box, you need to have a strategy. Now, I've shown tons of content before about how people who are actually really savvy in this area can get away with saving tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, on their student loan debt by utilizing some of these strategies. Taking the old-fashioned, I need to pay it off fast, I need to work harder, may not be the best approach, right? Once you have a strategy in place, you're on the correct payment plan, you know what the heck you're doing with all the moderate interest rate debt, you get to move on to the next phase. The next checkpoint on the path to wealth is having critical cash reserves. Now, again, this isn't super fun, but it's a necessary part of making sure that you actually can do the advanced wealth building stuff. This is a spectrum of what this looks like, but it starts with getting your financial life safe. So if you're running around and you've got $2,000 in savings and you own a house, or you own a car, or you have a medical insurance deductible that's higher than that, you're at quite a bit of financial risk, right? All it takes is one thing to go wrong, and all of a sudden, you're having to use credit cards or high interest debt to deal with whatever emergency has come up. So it starts with you having enough savings to cover all of your deductibles. Now, where does the critical cash reserves end? That depends on the person. For most folks, having 3 months of expenses is adequate. If you have job insecurity, you have a single income in a household with a spouse and 3 dependents, you might look to have more like 6 months of cash reserves to feel more comfortable. If you're in a season where you're all the way about to retire, you should probably have 12 months cash reserves liquid, right? This varies by person. Now, this one is one of the few where you actually get to kind of move to the next checkpoint while you're still finishing this up. Once you get past that mark where you're safe, right? Like your deductibles are covered, you have enough cash that if you lost a job, you can make it through, 6 weeks, 8 weeks. You should be investing as you gather up the remainder of your cash reserves. You should be working toward that wealth building piece, that next step in the pathway at the same time is gathering up the rest of that emergency fund. So let's say, we'll make up easy numbers, you have $10,000 a month in expenses. Let's say you have 15 grand in a high yield savings account. At that point, you're safe, right? That's likely enough to cover your deductibles. If an emergency arose, you could probably handle it. But your goal would be to have at least $30,000 in a high yield savings to be an emergency fund. You can then start investing as you simultaneously say, okay, every month, $500 goes into this emergency fund, $1,000 goes into this emergency fund, so that that's building towards the big goal while you're investing to build wealth. Now, we'll talk about it, but some of the more advanced wealth building modalities, you need capital to do it, right? Investing in the stock bond market, like opening a Roth IRA and investing in an ETF, you can start out with $10. There's no barrier to entry. But when you say, hey, I want to buy the short-term rental, I want to invest in the private equity syndication, I want to start a company that needs some capital, you need to have some cash. And so getting past the ability to have enough for cash reserves and security is key to getting you to the point where you have excess capital that you can redirect into actual wealth building opportunities that's going to come later. And once you're there, you should be moving into what I call the consistent investor. Now, that's not a random term. I have a very specific definition for it, and it is someone who invests 20% of their gross income for at least the last 3 months with a reasonable intention to continue. Okay, that's what makes a consistent investor. 20% of gross income. And you didn't just do it once, you didn't just do it twice, you did it for the last 3 months, and you're gonna keep doing it. Now, why 20%? I've got lots of other content on this, but for you to replace your inflation-adjusted lifestyle as a medical professional with the age that you likely started investing after prolonged training, right? 20% ends up being the floor of what you need to invest in order to just secure a standard retirement. And so once you've checked that box, you're a consistent investor. Now, if you make $150K a year and you're putting $7,000 in a Roth IRA and 4% in your 401k, I love you, but you're not a consistent investor. You're nowhere near the 20% mark. And so what you're doing is you're every year putting yourself further and further away from where you need to be from a wealth building standpoint, which sucks because compound interest favors the young. And so the longer that you put that off, the harder it actually becomes numerically to catch up. Now, if you happen to be watching this and you're like, well, shoot, I didn't know I should invest 20% gross. I've been in practice for 8 years now. I haven't been doing it. I'm further down the line. 20% is probably not your floor, right? You can do the exact math, but it's probably more like 25, 30, even 35%, depending on how long you waited to start investing. But for ease, right, we'll say once you've achieved this box, 20% of gross income invested for the last 3 months, and you're going to keep doing it, you're a consistent investor. And honestly, you can breathe a sigh of relief because in theory, you'll be able to retire, right? Mid-60s, you'll be able to shut it down. You'll be able to replace your standard of living. You won't be reliant upon Social Security. Your kids won't have to worry about how you're going to feed yourself. Life's pretty good. And now maybe you stop there, and that's okay. I don't blame you if you stop there. It's an okay place to stop. It's not where I stopped. It's not where a lot of folks want to stop, right? Because there's a lot of wealth building that can be done beyond the standard retirement. Maybe that looks like an early retirement. Maybe that looks like just reducing hours early or taking some time off to be with family. Maybe that looks like making a big charitable impact or creating some generational wealth. All of those things happen beyond the consistent investor mark. So we'll move into accelerated wealth building. That's the next step. That is where the whole thing becomes art, not science, right? There's so many different things you can do at this phase of the game. More than likely, you've already taken full advantage of your tax-advantaged retirement accounts. You're probably already using a 401k or 403b. You probably already have a Roth IRA in play. You probably already have a well, this is not a tax-advantaged retirement account, but you probably already have a brokerage. You're probably already using your HSA to invest if you have one, right? You're already doing those things. And so now the world becomes your oyster. You can continue down the path of, hey, I'm going to use stock bond investing and I'm going to build a portfolio and that's my game plan. And that's okay. The nice thing about that brokerage or that after-tax account is that you can actually invest unlimited amounts of money in it, right? If you happen to have the income to do it, you could invest $100,000 a year into your brokerage. No one's stopping you. You can actually create tremendous wealth just by doing that, but you might have your sights on something else. Maybe you want to buy real estate, right? Maybe you decide you want to invest in alternative asset classes. Maybe you want to engage in that private equity syndication deal. Whatever it looks like, at this phase of the game, you have options, right? You're past the season of like, I just need to create that retirement, and you're on to the fun stuff. And so how that looks is going to be different for everybody. Some people are like, I want to die with 30 properties, so my kids can inherit all that on a stepped up basis, and this is how I'm going to take care of my family, and they're going to buy one a year, and they love the whole process. And other people are like, there's not enough money on planet Earth for me to get a call about a toilet at 2 a.m. I don't want anything to do with real estate. And that's okay. There's so many different ways to build wealth. There's nothing saying you have to do one or the other. And once you're past all these other boxes, you really get to decide based on your goals, your preferences, and what you're after, what to do, right? Like, do you consider investing at this point for being primarily for net worth growth? Are you looking for cash flow and passive income? You can choose your modality based on what you're after, right? It's really an exciting phase to be in. And you also get to start thinking about legacy and impact at this phase of the game. Maybe you have a partner. What do we want to die with? What do we want to leave to kids? What do we want to leave to community, to our church? You can ask yourself all of those questions and tailor your plan at this point to accommodate it. Now, again, I mentioned before, some of this stuff requires capital, but at this point, you are like seasoned and disciplined and you know how to save some money. You know how to set stuff aside for the future. And so it's very easy for you to, in tandem, continue building a stock bond portfolio, using tax advantage retirement accounts, simultaneously building up some cash for that next opportunity that you want to invest in. You have the capability of doing both. At some point, you get to the last spot on the path, which I've labeled with a pot of gold for fun, which is being financially free. Now that sounds like pie in the sky, la la land, right? But it's actually just a mathematical destination where your assets can cover your living expenses forever and ever until you die, amen, right? That's financially free. You can do it so many different ways. You can do it with an entirely stock bond portfolio where you say, hey, based on the age I'm going to retire, this withdrawal rate's going to be reasonable for me. My portfolio, statistically speaking, can sustain that all the way till death. Check. You can also do it with real estate. You could say, hey, these are my monthly expenses. I have enough cash flow in real estate that the cash flow from real estate covers all my monthly expenses. You're financially free. Done. Check. Right? Again, so many ways to skin the cat. But the point is, you hit that mathematical spot. You're past the point where it's just, oh, my investments earn more money than I do, which is still an exciting point. Now you're at the spot where my investments cover everything I need. This is the point where you're totally work optional, right? You can continue to work if you want. You can take a lower paying job if you want. You can work less if you want, right? But the cool thing is, you get to get rid of doing anything you don't want to do because you don't need the money. And so you might look at your boss and go, no more call shifts, right? No more weekends, no more holidays. I'll stay on, but I only work Monday through Thursday. And they're going to say, oh, you're taking a big pay cut. And you get to smile and go, I don't care, right? Because your real estate cash flow or your portfolio or whatever it is takes care of your needs. And you're working because you love it, not because you need the next paycheck. Or you might hit this metric and you're 62 and you're like, psh, I'm done. I'm calling it quits. I'm going to retire. There's so much space between what financial independence looks like and what age you achieve it that, again, this is the art, not science area of money, right? For some people, this happens at 41. For other people, it happens at 81 and everything in between. But for all of us, it should happen because the last thing that any of us want is to end our days reliant upon Social Security, struggling to meet basic needs, struggling to pay for our medical care, and having our families have to worry about us. So you need to get here. You need to get to the pot of gold. It's just a matter of when, how quickly. Now, if at any point in this process you're like, I don't know how, right? Join our Millionaires in Medicine Club. It's totally free. The link's below. But twice a month, we pay financial industry experts to come in and teach you things like stock bond investing, estate planning, tax strategy, real estate investing, and more. So that you actually learn some of the stuff you never learned in school that will allow you to walk down this path. So I would encourage you, no matter where you're at on the path today, get in the club, find a resource so that you can help figure out how do I need to go to the next step, right? Even if you're at the very beginning and you're sitting on a bunch of credit card debt, we have strategies that you can use to help yourself get out of that phase and on to the next. We all go at our own pace. We're all on our own journey, but the goal is for all of us as medical professionals to arrive at financial freedom, hopefully sooner rather than later.